What better time to talk about a Big Ten Notre Dame potential marriage than when Notre Dame plays the best team in the Big Ten? Could we see it down the road? Could it be sooner than later? Notre Dame and the Big Ten, could they finally get together? Before we get into the video, just a reminder, hit subscribe, ring the bell to stay notified. It is free of charge. If you love the B1G, this is the place to be. We're going live this Sunday, 6 o'clock Central Time. At that point, every single Big Ten team will have played at least one game. How are we feeling at that point? We're going to have live calls. We're going to have live chats. It's going to be a fun time. Join us Sunday, 6 o'clock Central Time. Notre Dame doesn't need the Big Ten. The Big Ten doesn't need Notre Dame. All right, roll credits. Nope, we're going to talk about that just a little bit more. As long as Notre Dame has access to the college football playoff, and as long as they have national television exposure with their football television partner, they are going to remain independent. Okay, their athletic director, Jack Swarbrick, has said that. And that's the vibe they're giving off right now. That's what they're going to do. That's just what's going to happen, because as long as they've been doing it for this long, then why change? Notre Dame has proven that they don't need to make the money that Purdue makes or Vanderbilt makes, because I've seen people on Twitter, I've seen people in the comments that says, how much longer is Notre Dame going to be okay with making less than Vanderbilt or Purdue? Well, that's not as big of a deal to them. Okay, let's dive a little bit more into this. The Big Ten and their new media deal has an elevator clause. I think a lot of people know that by now. The only school that is mentioned by name is the University of Notre Dame. So what does that tell me? It tells me that the Big Ten wants Notre Dame. Okay, they want Notre Dame to increase their value, and maybe that's the only team they really, really want deep down inside. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the college football playoff. If the Big Ten and the SEC get their way, we're going to have a 16-team playoff, no AQs. It's just going to be the top 16 teams that way, with all the Big Ten, as many Big Ten teams can get in, as many SEC teams can get in, and then make as much revenue in there as possible. They're the ones that are going to have the most teams that are going to be able to get into the college football playoff. So that's just 16 straight up the top 16 teams, which of course would favor Notre Dame very well, with no automatic qualifiers. Even if you get like a 12-team 6+6, 6 AQs, 6 at-larges, that still gives Notre Dame a chance to get into the top 8 or the top 10 in the country and still be in the college football playoff, which they should be able to do on a semi-regular basis. So as long as those types of scenarios exist within the college football playoff, I firmly believe that Notre Dame remains independent. Let's talk about the television side of things. NBC recently said when they signed their deal with the Big Ten, have that primetime slot, they said we've got a great 1-2 punch with the Notre Dame game flowing directly in to the Big Ten game. NBC wants those two big-time games right next to each other. Okay, I'm not sure if the Big Ten all of a sudden wants Notre Dame to join the Big Ten full-time, and now all of a sudden it's clumped together and now they only have one big-time game. I think they want to have Notre Dame independent, and they want to have the Big Ten game at night. I think that's what NBC wants from a television side. So you got the college football playoff, you got the television figured out. Why on earth would Notre Dame join the Big Ten full time? I'm not sure if they would. Now the plan and the kind of other agreement that I'm going to present, it's not a prediction, it's not necessarily what I think will happen, but it's just an option. And I want you all to talk about it in the comments below, whether you think it's a good option, whether you think it's a bad option. Let's get the discussion started. All right. Let's put it up. There it is. Here's the idea. Big Ten Notre Dame joins the Big Ten in every sport, but except for football. They remain a football independent. But if we're going to give you that, if the Big Ten is going to give that to Notre Dame's got to make some concessions. Here they are. Notre Dame will play 6 Big Ten teams. And here's the deal. They can only play 6 Big Ten teams. The Big Ten will schedule those games. There'll be 3 at home in that 3:30 p.m. time slot on NBC, and 3 will be on the road or wherever, CBS, NBC, Fox, wherever they may be. The great thing about this, especially for those road games, you can see Notre Dame on Big Noon Kickoff. You can see Notre Dame in that 3:30 CBS time slot. Once again, Notre Dame is a brand. Whether people love them or whether people hate them, it's going to raise those television ratings. It's going to raise the value of Big Ten football on those other networks. It's going to raise the value for the Big Ten to bring in Notre Dame in this type of scenario. So 6 Big Ten games. We're going to limit it to that. The Big Ten gets to choose those 6 games that Notre Dame will play. 3 at home and 3 on the road, as I said before. There are some caveats to this. Teams can't play more than 2 years in a row against Notre Dame. If you play 2 straight years, you got to take a 2-year break. You can't play back-to-back Notre Dame home games. Because if you play in one of those 3:30 p.m. Notre Dame home games, you get a little kickback. You get a little bonus revenue. Let me talk about that. Let's say Notre Dame negotiates an $80 million deal per year with NBC. About $60 million of that would go to Notre Dame. But the extra revenue would go to the teams that play Notre Dame in that time slot. So that's almost like a bonus. NBC and the Big Ten and everybody wants half of those games on NBC to be big time games, because you're probably going to have about 6 of them, split the schedule in half with those home games. You get a bonus kickback revenue, let's say $20 million, you divide that by 3, it's about $6.5 million for a team to play in that time slot. Once again, if Notre Dame is going to do their independent thing, they got to kick some things back to the Big Ten. And that's how we're going to do this. And Notre Dame is going to take another cut. They're going to take reduced revenue and all the other sports, the basketball, all the Big Ten network stuff, reduced revenue, 50% of the revenue that the other schools bring in. So this is what I would do, because if I'm the Big Ten, I'm not doing the ACC deal. I'm not doing, you play 5 teams and everything else is fine. Everything else is hunky-dory. Everything else is the same. No. If I'm going to let Notre Dame stay independent, they got to make some concessions coming back, because I'm not sure if Notre Dame would join the Big Ten full time unless we get conferences get to 20 teams, they get to 22 teams, where the scheduling, they just can't schedule. They get to 10 conference games, they get to 11 conference games, and they can't schedule those games anymore. When could this happen? I think because of the ACC grant of rights, I don't think it would really happen until the 2030s. I don't think Notre Dame would pull the trigger until the 2030s. The ACC grant of rights expires in 2036. So I think that's something you got to keep in the back of your head. With all this conference realignment going on, I don't think we're going to see super duper conferences right away. I don't think you're going to see the Big Ten take a bunch of the schools out west. I think they're going to be very picky. They're going to be very selective, because we all know Notre Dame is their number 1 target. So, and of course Notre Dame has to surrender, so to speak, to this ACC grant of rights agreement. Eventually, when the ACC GOR is expiring, you got to think the SEC is going to get in there. Miami, Florida State, Clemson, Virginia Tech, you got to think maybe they're going to take at least a couple of those schools when ESPN wants to expand that as well. But remember, ESPN also has a little bit of a stake in the ACC. So they still want that to be a pretty good conference, and they're not going to surrender teams very easily to the Fox, the NBC, the CBSs of the world up in the Big Ten Conference. So, that's, I think, when things could move. If the SEC takes a couple of those ACC schools and all of a sudden the ACC is not as strong, the Big Ten might say, we're going to do a lot better in the Big Ten. Do they join full-time, or do they take this part-time deal? I want to know your thoughts. What do you think Notre Dame's future is down the road? I've laid it all out for you. Do you like the full-time deal, or do you like this part-time deal? Leave your thoughts, comments below. Sure, there will be a lot of discussion. Make sure you subscribe to Big Ten Ted for Big Ten videos every day. I'm Big Ten Ted. We'll see you in the next one.